Well, pretty soon you're going to be looking at weeds. Hey, welcome everyone. We are so glad that you are tuned in. Today's garden class is unique or different. And what we've done, so it was 61 years ago this month that Waters Garden Center started back in 1962. I was not the original owner. I didn't open the place, obviously. My father-in-law did, Harold Waters, and that's where the name Waters Garden Center comes from. So it's a family name. So I married his youngest of 4 daughters, and I think prettiest. So we were college sweethearts. In fact, we opened our first business together before we even married while we were in school. So in fact, our first business it's called Expressions in Silk. We would take your wedding bouquets and stuff. We would recreate them for you so you could have them in permanent form in silk fashion. So it was kind of high-end silk stuff. So it was our first. We'd take that and go out to dinner someplace or do whatever because we're poor college kids. So we've just fallen in love with plants and flowers and gardening ever since. And so I did corporate moves for a while out of college where I was a corporate banker. Gosh, I'm glad I'm not doing that anymore. I actually set up credit bureaus. So I created TransUnion and Equifax credit bureaus. I collect the data, get the database and sell it back to them when you're issuing a credit card on a car loan or whatever. So that was my first few jobs out of college for like 10 years. Then I missed my small town. I want to come back home because those big corporations, they are always having you move to wherever the big corporate office is. So I don't want to live in Chicago, Atlanta, or wherever else. I want to come back home. So came back and I was chopping wood with Harold Waters one holiday. Kids just came home for the holiday. And we worked out this deal to buy the garden center over a quart of wood, of all things. So worked out the details later. It just got us back home. And so we bought it out. We started becoming an owner in 92. And then we have full ownership in 2002. So Lisa and I bought all the shares. So it's been ours kind of since that time. So that's kind of the history of Waters Garden Center. We still celebrate every spring. It's just kind of a way for us to get ready. We never know. I've actually had it snow at this event, like 6 inches or more. And then I've had it be glorious shorts weather. You never know when you pull the trigger on this. It is going to get nicer and nicer as we get going, but we are not out of the woods with frost and that kind of stuff. So you need plants that can handle frost and cold and have that extreme weather. Bless you. So anyway, that's the plants we're going to talk about right now. So all the plants you have right here are spring. They want to be planted in the spring, like now. So lilacs, you need them in the ground now before they wake up, before they go into bloom. Also, the insider tip, if you buy them now, you get first dibs. So I've got a record amount, like lots of varieties, lots of sizes right now. As soon as the first lilac blooms in the county, the gardeners will go, what is that? I want one. There's this tidal wave of gardeners going, I want one, I want one, I want. And we quickly, and these are plants. So once they sell out, it's not like you can grow more. It's not like hit a button and more come out the other end. It's just that's it. That's all we have. So we're trying to guesstimate. These folks we have for you today, I've got 7 sales reps, growers, or folks in the industry. They don't usually talk to consumers. They work through us. So they live at the farm. So Jim Roop is with Monrovia Growers. They're kind of like the Cadillac or the Lexus dealers of plants. They're consistent, cookie cutter, perfect. They don't do seeds, they do clones, they do cuttings. They want the plants to be exactly the same. So when you plant a row, they grow the same. So they grow real consistency. And so Jim's a friend. He's also a local Prescottonian. So he lives here. He covers the whole state, but he was just at the farm yesterday, which I am actually a little worried about. Says luckily we got our Visalia order yesterday. We may not get one for a while if that thing floods. So what happened? Tell everyone what's going on in California in that Mid-Valley area. It's pretty bad.
Yeah, we're in this real quick. We're in the Central Valley, and we get our water right out of the Cahuilla River. It comes right by our nursery. That's where our fresh water comes from. So yeah, record snowpack in this area, as we all know. Then they had a lovely 3 to 4 inches of rain in the foothills and the lower elevations of the mountains yesterday. On top of that, 10 feet of snow. So it all started to come down in the form of water. And then during our sales meeting about noon yesterday, they said, hey, we're evacuating the nursery. The river might overflow. So we all left, and I think everything's okay, but I haven't heard for sure. But
he came in this morning. I went, Jim, what are you doing here? I thought you were at the farm. What's going on? So they evacuated the farm, and we had to leave. So I came back home. I'm worried that from our end, from your end, our end, consumers, if the farm gets flooded out, it can destroy crops, or it takes out bridges. So you can't get the semi over there to go load plants, come back over here. It's disruption kind of stuff. So we'll see how that plays out. And they're not the only farm we get up and down that coast. But anyway, so far hasn't overflowed. We're good.
So far, we're good.
Anyway, let's talk about plants. So Jim he's a gardener. He's also been in the industry. Tell us about Monrovia. How'd you get in the industry? Give us some intimacy here that maybe we wouldn't know unless we had a couple of glasses of scotch.
So Monrovia's around since 2026, just a little older than Waters. I myself, I think it's 35 years. I've lost track actually. I started as Christmas tree help at a retail garden center in San Diego. And then I worked my way up into management at this garden center chain. And then I've been with Monrovia ever since for about 35 years. So started up in Oregon, learned all the cold product up there. Now I'm down and then worked down in Azusa or Southern California growing ground. And then I've been out on the road for about 30 years now. 20 of it here in Arizona. So
awesome. And so total years, 35 with Monrovia. And then you were at Christmas tree farms and garden centers before that?
Retail. But
retail. For how many years?
8 years on that.
8. So you got 40 plus years. When are you going to retire? What's going on here? So, so tell us about plants. Give us, because these guys, they want to know about the insider tips. Show us what they are and how to grow them and why we'd want them in our gardens here in the Central Highlands.
Okay. Well, I just overheard this young lady say that she's tired of brown and she's ready for spring and for color. So I'm going to talk about a few plants that are late winter, the earliest bloomers coming spring or late winter. As you go down through the season, more and more comes into color, get into summer, even have more color. But there's a lot of things you're going to see them pop, like Ken said, in the landscape here within the next couple of weeks.
Yep.
They're going to start showing color, and some things even show color through the winter. So I'm going to start out with this one here. It's called Yucca Gloriosa Bright Star.
Yeah, I'll hold it up. Okay. I'll show it up. I'll show you how to show up.
Careful with the eyes, okay? It's so pretty.
Isn't that pretty? Oh my gosh.
So in the winter, when it cools off, this starts to get this vibrant orangish red color to the foliage. Then as it warms up in the spring, you have a nice green and yellow variegated. So you have color with this plant year round. But what's nice is in the winter is when it really kind of showcases the brighter reddish color to it.
Does this have a flower on it?
Yes, it can. Flower? It would take a little age, probably 5 years or so before to put up a spike.
How old is this plant right now? Would you guess? From starting to.
It's at least 3 years old.
Good
start, yeah.
Yeah.
It could be going on 4.
Gotcha.
Now, yuccas compared to an agave, once they do bloom, it doesn't kill the plant.
Right.
So when it's done blooming, you just cut off the stalk, and it keeps going, and they pup out, so you get more plants too. So that's the nice thing about.
I would say don't put this one on a drip system. Water it by hand. It is very drought hardy. So if you're going to kill this, it'll be that it's got a real fleshy root to it, like a carrot or a peony. And so if it gets in real heavy wet soil and you overwater it, and it can collapse.
Yeah, good for a really good hot area too.
So I grow this plant in my back patio, in a pot, on my back patio, in a pot. And it's because it's, that's what you see in the magazines right now. A big saucer with a great big agave. That's what I have. It's been in there for years. It's spectacular, and everyone comments on it. They go, "Oh, what is that? How'd you do that? You're such a gardener." God, it's pretty easy. Just throw it in there and water it every once in a while. That's it. So I'm going to put this right over here. Oh yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Love the snow.
Then just a couple plants that are traditional old favorites that people are used to seeing blooming late winter, early spring. This is Forsythia called Magical Gold. There's another one blooming back here. Forsythias are the harbinger of, when you see Forsythia blooming, winter's on the back door, spring is coming around the corner. So you know the cold days of winter and snow and rain are coming to an end, and we're going to get to the glorious days of spring. And that's, to me, that's what forsythia kind of
They actually sure are.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they're just when they bloom, they're just, it's a focal point. Everyone sees them driving by.
Beauty I like about forsythia, animals don't eat it. So javelina, deer, elk, I've got personal experience. They don't bother this plant. It looks delicious, looks soft, gets this beautiful green shrub about this big, but animals leave it alone.
Yeah.
So consistent blooms, real pretty fall color, like aspen gold, real pretty fall color. Then it's got this interesting structure to it, bark to it.
And the only thing key you need to know about this is the only time to prune it is basically after it's done blooming, because it blooms on the new growth. So if you were to prune this back late summer, fall, you got about this much new growth on it. That's where a lot of your blooms are going to come from. If you prune that back, then you're not going to have you won't have many flowers. So
same advice for lilac.
Yeah.
Wait, bloom it, cut it back right after it's done blooming. It'll be leafing out. You're going, this seems wrong. But if you want flowers, prune it after it's done blooming.
Next is lavenders. It's a lot of different types of
What'd
lavenders.
you bring? Only twigs up here? What is that?
It's cold weather.
Inspire us, will you? Inspire us with words. In a couple weeks, these will all be in bloom. I mean, literally, it's just they're so heavily budded. They're starting to crack color. So within just a couple another warm days, everything's going to pop.
Yeah. So the different types of lilacs now, you have kind of more bushy ones, 3 to 4 feet, that bloom off and on, or have more of a second bloom. So they'll bloom May in the spring, then you might have a push of blooms in the fall as well. Then you have your traditional larger lilacs. This is like Lavender Lady. There's a lot of different colors, shades of purple, blue, white even. And once again, this tends to bloom after the forsythia are done blooming. This tends to bloom. So you got a forsythia in your yard, it's blooming. Then you have this in your yard, and this takes off and starts blooming. So kind of extends your color season for.
We have probably 30 different, 25. I guess so many varieties of lilac, I can't count them all. There's a lot of varieties. As those varieties sell down or out, there are no more, especially the newer, like dwarfed ones. I might have a couple hundred, the dwarf bloomerang lilacs, and that's all we get for the entire year. And it's peak of spring bloomers. So you kind of want to grab those. I mean, you'll be looking at, I'm going to think about it for a little bit. You come back a week later and they're all gone. It works that way. Really, I'm not trying to pitch you or trying to force you, but it really does work that way. Just so you know.
Yeah, us as growers, we have a crop of lilacs, and once they all go out, we're kind of done with lilacs. By the time we get into April, end of April,
Rosa Sharon's or crepe myrtle or something else.
So yeah, like Ken said, get your
20% of your landscape should be spring bloomers. It's forsythias, lilacs, quince, things that show off in the spring. 20% should be in the summer bloomers, crepe myrtles, Rosa Sharon's. I think roses are that way. 20% should be fall color, maples, aspens, things that look beautiful, burning bush. These are all fall plants, mums, fall plants. 20% should be evergreen color. You might feel like you're a little bit too brown. You might not have quite enough evergreen stuff out there as your anchors in the landscape. Maybe you need a couple more spruce or pine or firs or things that keep that green. And that last 20%, so spring, summer, fall, winter, is whatever tickles your fancy. Put that in. So that's that fudge fat. Just do whatever makes you happy. If this is your summer home, plant summer stuff. If this is your winter home from Wisconsin, Alaska, you snowbird folks, plant the winter stuff, because that's when you're here. You're not here in the summer to enjoy it. You're going back to growing tomatoes the size of your head in Alaska or Minnesota. So Heath, it's good.
Heath.
Oh yeah, that's good. Full sun.
This question on the lilacs. Yeah. So the question was on the lilacs, sun exposure. Yes, they can take full sun, no problem at all. They can take a little bit of filtered shade as well. So really versatile.
Yeah.
But more of the sun, the better. Yeah.
Okay. You got 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Keep
All right.
Roll it.
Another.
You want to hold the heavy one for you?
Another winter color is the Erica, the heather.
Yeah.
This is the white one. This comes in a pink. Sometimes there's a red one as well. It's a great, small, low foundation plant. Takes a fair amount of sun. yeah, this is like one of the first things to bloom in the wintertime.
The first thing to
first
bloom,
thing, yeah.
literally. First thing to bloom.
And it has a pretty long bloom, but about
Yeah.
a month, I'd say, or more.
Maybe more.
8 weeks, yeah.
I've grown this in full sun in Skull Valley
Okay.
on a perennial bed. And javelina and deer and elk did not eat this. I don't know about cattle. Anyone growing cattle? Don't test them with this. They eat everything. Goats, they eat everything. So
And
go for it.
one more minute here, according to is another thing you're going to start seeing blooming in early spring is going to be the red buds. And there's a lot of different types, and some other varieties are going to be talked about more. But this one is one of the earlier ones. It's called Avondale. And this one has actually one of the largest flowers of, I think, any of the red buds. And it just blooms in these long clumps along the stem.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Traditional heart-shaped leaf to it. So like a traditional
And it's
red bud.
It's a pretty moderate, it's just 20 feet, small tree, nice, easy.
If you're optimistic, yeah.
Yeah. So.
It's teens. It goes into the teens pretty much. Yeah.
But if you live long enough, it'll make 20.
Yeah. And this is from the pea family. So these flowers are actually edible. Delicious. They do taste good. They do taste good. You can sprinkle them on top of, you make salads and stuff. You want to impress your garden friends, sprinkle some red bud flowers on there. They'll be awestruck. Put a few pansies on there, violas. Yeah. So what's your favorite hobby?
Camping.
Yeah, there you go. What's your favorite camping place? This guy camps in Jeeps. He's a Jeeper hardcore. You Jeeper folks? He can keep up with you.
The desert is my favorite.
Is it?
I love the desert. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Favorite like Tucson or Phoenix or be more
Kofas. Way western part of the state, Kofa National Wildlife Refuge.
That's awesome.
I like the desert because the diversity of plants is way more than you'll find in the forest.
Yeah.
It's got a huge diversity of plants, and sometimes they show their heads this time of year, other times this time of year.
How's the wildflowers looking right this year? Are they
I'm
starting to
going
show
out
now?
next weekend, so I'll let you know.
Yeah,
So,
I'd love to know.
I think
I'll get
everything's
the word
about
out to
a
folks.
couple weeks late.
Yeah.
But
Jim Roop with Monrovia Growers. They have farms in Visalia, as Fresno, or Oregon. I'm choking on red bud flowers. Oregon, and I really want the hydrangeas from that Georgia farm. I really want it. Keep pushing Jonathan for that. I want those. I want them. So thank you, Jim.
we get some beautiful hydrangeas in Visalia.
That's
so
good.
They're going to be coming on good.
Appreciate it. Okay, thanks. Give it up for Jim. Who was my next victim? Let's see. Dave Dickey, was that you? Dave. So Dave is our go-to guy when we run out of something, we're trying to explore for something. I go, Dave, sir, go look at all the farms, go find these for me. So just found some stunning, unbelievable Deodar cedars, they're hard to find because they're kind of a unique plant to just hear. And so we ran out. Dave goes, I got some for you, but ship them all. We'll take them. So just put them on the truck. So
we got more, Jen. We got more.
He roams around. So Dave is with the Woodburn Nursery and a whole bunch of others. You're a contractor rep?
I'm a sales rep. I focus on, I have a couple big nurseries I sell for. J. Frank Schmidt is one of them. We specialize, we're one of the largest tree growers in the country. They really just grow trees, and they do some evergreens, but we really focus in on trees. A lot of new introduction stuff comes out of J. Frank Schmidt. They've probably introduced about 40 to 60 trees over the years. They're one of the few nurseries that has their own R&D department, and we've had it for about 40 or 50 years. So we've really done a lot of testing and introducing of new trees. And then Woodburn Nursery is kind of my container shrub, perennial roses, small conifer person. And we kind of specialize in a lot of plants for the Intermountain region. So there's a lot of plants that they grow that do really well here. I currently live in Denver, originally from Ohio, been out in Denver for about 15 years now. And I've been selling for a long time, and I started in Ohio, and I've kind of sold across the upper Midwest and Denver, and now Utah and Arizona, New Mexico. So I get to see all the West, and then I really love all the Western plants. Coming from Ohio, we had all the things, and then I moved out here, and I really gained a real appreciation for all the Western natives and the different plants out here. The adaptations that they've made are just really incredible. It's a lot of fun.
What I love about Dave is he's a Denver guy, which is very similar to us. It's really hard to find perennial plants that are drought hardy for the Mountain West. Dave's got a direct interest and he lives and he practices and he uses, so he's got influence too. So he goes, hey, growers, we need some of these. And I go, we've never grown those before.
You can do it. Don't worry.
I had a nickel for every time I heard that. Never grown that before. Well, Dave kind of goes, well, you should really try this. And then we get first dibs on those fancy new Russian sage or gaillardias or whatever that is. So there's a direct working relationship. It pays to have your reps kind of know what kind of area you're at. So anyway,
yeah, no, it's great. I've got some really good partners I work with in Oregon, and they listen to me, which is really fun. Yeah. Although it puts me on a line, so I really got to tell them the right stuff, or I lose my credibility. So, but it's fun. I've got a lot of. I love to camp too, but I would say like my hobby is gardening. Like I love gardening, and so I love playing with plants. And my yard is just a big arboretum of different things that I
should have said that. Where is should have said gardening?
Well, I love camping too. Yeah, no, I mean, it's fun. I test the plants in my yard, and then I go to my growers and I'm like, hey, we got to do this, and so it's fun. It's a really fun hobby.
What plants do you have up here?
So
you're pulling your plant, showing it to us.
Yeah.
How many acres are these farms you're dealing with?
Well, so Schmidt
is like forever.
We'll start with Schmidt over here. Yeah. So this is Kwanzaa cherry. Can you see me over there? So this is an ornamental cherry. It does not get fruit, and it gets a really, really beautiful double flower, and it's larger. It's probably about that big when it blooms, and the whole tree, probably in, I don't know, depending on your weather, 2-3 weeks is just going to be a blaze of color. And if your weather holds, it'll flower for, a couple weeks. And it's just a beautiful tree. And then it does get a fall color, gets kind of a bigger, a cherry leaf that will get like a orangish red in the fall. So, and it stays relatively small. It's not going to get too big on you. And it doesn't mind the heat and it doesn't mind the cold. So it does really well here.
We have a native cherry that's about to start blooming. It's white. You see a tree out in the forest. That's our native cherry or prunus family. It's from it's a cousin to that. So it's super tough, takes our soil, takes our wind, and it's got the most beautiful, dainty, double cherry flower. It's delicate. I mean, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's really.
And then it's got the fall colors. Yeah, it's got everything.
It's got a lot of different seasonal interests. So, and we've got lots more trees out there.
How do you create a new tree? Just tell us. I want to know. We all want to know.
Well, all right.
Things that you like.
Well, so there's different methods. There's somebody saw a tree out in their neighborhood, and it's a unique selection, and they send us. We get about 3,000 trees a year that we either select, get sent to us, or partner nurseries share with us. From those 3,000 trees, we end up introducing only about 4 trees a year. Now those 3,000 trees don't get introduced next year. It takes anywhere from, on average, it takes about 8 to 10 years to introduce a tree. Some trees, it's taken us 25 years. So we'll find trees in nature. We'll find a tree in a row of trees that just looks different, and we'll pull it out and we'll watch it for 10 years before we decide that it's even worth putting back into, our trials. You'll get seedling trees, there's genetic variability in oaks and things like that. And you'll just find a new selection. And people send us stuff. They've got a tree in their yard. I've sent trees from Denver that I saw and thought were cool and are different. And but it really takes a long time to introduce a tree. So when you're a tree grower, it's a big long-term investment.
What I love about Schmidt, because we'll go up to the farm, we fly up, we just tour them all, we handpick the trees. So we spend a day, that's all we do. And then because of our relationship and long-term, we've been going to Schmidt for, 40, 50 years, a long time. You had your 75th anniversary, probably close to when you first started. But then we get first dibs on some of these new introductions going, that's pretty cool. I've never seen that before. And we kind of test it, or they'll give me one to try here. They go, Dave, it's a winner. Bring them. We'll take them.
Yeah, that's the other unique thing about Schmidt and our trial trees is we have trial partners there's about 40 across the United States, anywhere from Georgia to North Dakota. And we'll send our brand new trees to all of those, regardless of your zone. And so our goal is to go out and kill trees and then find out which ones survive and which ones do really well in those different conditions. And so we have all these trial partners that come back with information of, this tree did really well. And occasionally we find plants that we didn't think were going to do well in North Dakota, and they're thriving. And and then sometimes we think a tree is going to do really well somewhere and it doesn't. So it's a lot of research goes into those trees.
Guide you in some, because I know you could go on all day. So
Let's get to a minute. Let's get to the bushes. Let's get to the bushes. So
also a plant nerd. So I'm excited about his manzanita line over the top.
Yeah. So manzanitas. This is a manzanita. If you drive anywhere in Arizona, you'll see these. It's kind of one of your natives. There's a program called Plant Select. It's based out of Colorado. It's a plant introduction program, and a lot of good, hardy, tough plants for the Intermountain region come out of there. These were selected. There's 3 of them in the plant selection. They were selected on the western slope of Colorado. This is Chieftain. It's got a little bit bigger leaf, and then there's Panchito over there. They'll both get pink flowers this time of year. They're both lower spreaders, and they'll get 2.5 feet tall, 6 to 8 feet wide. Chieftain's got a little bit bigger leaf. It's a little bit more open, so you get a little bit more of that red bark. Panchito will fill in and get a little bit fuller, and it's got a little bit smaller leaf. In my yard, Chieftain actually blooms better than my Panchito. But that's just my yard. And I kind of like the Chieftain look. It's a little bit more natural, a little bit more open. But Panchito's great too. It's just a little bit fuller. But these will do great here.
Howard McMinn, which is our big one. That's the big boy. It's too big for a lot of yards. That's what you see out in the wild. Yep. Then Chieftain gets how tall?
It's about 2.5 feet tall and about 6 feet wide.
So knee high.
Yep.
Gotcha. And then Panchito is
it's a little bit shorter. It's a little bit fuller and denser and about the same width.
And then we have this one. This is Connect. This is the ground cover.
And that only gets
there's 4 different heights of manzanita. And I would not put manzanita on a drip system. Don't overwater it.
Yeah.
You're going to kill it. It'll be from overwatering. Just hand water it. When you think about it, forget to water it.
That first year, don't forget to water it. You're going to water a little bit more once it gets established. Then you pretty much just can let it go. It's just like your natives. I mean, those aren't getting artificial water and either. So once it's established,
these are starting to bloom too. So it's one of the first food sources for your honeybees. Things that are first coming, the pollinators that first come up, they use this as a food source because they're hungry right now. They've been hibernating for 5 months. So they're looking for the flowers. It's got the same bell-shaped flowers, real pretty, evergreen. It's got everything you want. So
and they prefer full sun, but you can put them in some partial shade. I've got one in my house that it doesn't bloom very well in the shade, but it grows just fine, and it does great in really harsh spots that nothing's lived there. Try manzanita. It's one of those plants that's just going to live just about anywhere you put it.
So what's the most exotic post-pandemic place you've been since COVID? Don't say question. Denver, please.
No. We went to Puerto Rico.
Yeah,
here,
love it,
and we loved it. If you haven't been to Puerto Rico, highly recommend it. The people are amazing.
How are the plants?
The plants are cool. Yeah, no, it was fun. It was fun. We had a really good time.
Caitlin, you're thank you, Dave.
Right.
Give me that microphone if you would. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. So Caitlin Thomas is eBirdie, probably the fastest growing farm in the country right now. There you go. She's a Flagstaff gal, and she got her wings at Warner's Nursery. It's a friend of ours. They own a garden center up in They're the Waters Garden Center Flagstaff. Good friends. She's a manager for them and kind of jumped ship and went to the grower side, and now is repping. What's your territory? How many farms do you represent? I can never keep track.
Yeah, it's changing all the time. So I represent all of Arizona. I used to do Southern Nevada and then part of California as well, but now I'm just in Arizona, which I like because I'm an Arizona gal. Live up in Flagstaff. Very tired of shoveling my driveway right now. So I am really, I love working with the family-owned garden centers because I worked for one for so long up there. And so we're really excited to be able to supply to you. And that's why I went over to Verde Growers, is because they offered me a position working exclusively with all of the family-owned garden centers in Arizona. So it really feels like a family.
It does.
We are actually an extremely large company. We operate we grow in 4 different states. We are selling coast to coast. So we grow in Florida, Texas, California, and Oregon. And California and Oregon's typically where you get your material from.
Although I do want those hydrangeas from Georgia. They're just nicer. So if I get some of those, it'd be awesome. Jim?
Yeah, we'll put that on him. Yeah, so we actually produce over 33 million plants annually.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty big operation, have over 2,000 employees, but it still feels like a family. So yeah, huge operation, but we're able to.
How many farms on the West Coast, just for me, not for you all? How many farms? So you consolidate some farms. They're growing some of that exotic things that we can't get elsewhere because they're in different, they got so many farms. They can grow things that no one else will grow because they got the right conditions. Hey, Caitlin, can you get us some of these? She'll bring it from this farm and condense it here. How many of those farms are you pulling off of the West Coast?
The West Coast specifically, I would say in California and Oregon, I would say that there's about 11 now.
Gotcha. Wow.
So we're able to
No
take,
idea.
yeah, we're able to take different plants and figure out where they're grown best. So the climate can really encourage the best plants available. So
Gotcha.
yeah, we have a lot of farms, and most of the stuff that you get comes from Southern California.
Okay.
We have a really great acclimation rate that comes in. We typically, everything survives really well because it's produced in an arid environment.
Talk about some of them. Show them off. What do you got for us?
Speaking of spring interest, I know Dave was talking about some of the most amazing crosses of trees and how we typically do that.
Can you look at that, Ken? Got it? Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
I'm way
Good.
over here. So I brought some red buds. I know that.
Let's space them out just so they can see, because these are interesting forms. Let's just kind of put them where folks can see the actual form a little better. It's Ruby Falls and then twisted. So you describe them how you want.
Yeah, so I'll start with the vanilla twist. So this one's really interesting. This one actually produces, this is an Eastern red bud, and both of these are actually Eastern red buds. And I know that it can sometimes be a little intimidating to do the Eastern red buds instead of the Western, which is native to out West here. But as long as you have good compost and you're amending the soil, which all of you know to do anyway, they'll do well. I would recommend, if you live in a hotter part of Prescott, to maybe do afternoon shade with these. But this one is the Eastern redbud, the vanilla twist. So this one produces white blooms. Little bit of a oxymoron with the red bud, but this one is, it's actually budded. You can see it's going to bloom here soon. We do have these for sale in the nursery today, but this is going to be a weeper. So this is going to cascade down, give you a real cousin it kind of vibe in the garden. Very textural. Yeah. So this one's going to weave down. It gets up to about 12 feet tall to 8 feet wide. These are great habitat plants. So not only do the butterflies and the bees and other pollinators really love these blooms, and you can eat them, as Ken said, but you know, I've never tried it before. Maybe
you should try them. I'm telling you, they're delicious. They're sweet. They're sweet. They're peas.
Pick one of those off here in a second. Yeah, so great pollinator plants. They also, if you put these next to a bird feeder, they have really nice branches that kind of give a little hiding spot to some of those creatures that don't want to be up.
It's super unusual to have a white red bud. They're always in pinks and reds. White, super unusual, and I find that one is more, it's got a fragrance to it. It's quite sweet. Whereas the other ones, not so much. They're just beautiful. They all have that classic, the leaf on that is still green, right? So
it is, yes.
Yeah, gotcha. So it's got a green heart-shaped leaf, kind of flows down. And this one's interesting. In the winter, it's got this twisted kind of, it's got a character to it, even without the foliage. It's really, really interesting. Can you talk about Ruby Falls? It's one of my favorite.
Yeah, so Ruby Falls is interesting as well. So this one's actually going to come out dark maroon. The leaves are going to come out dark maroon. It does have the regular.
We can show the folks online. They can take a look at the pictures. And there you go. Or a twig in the winter. It's got a weeping flow to it. It's very interesting.
So these leaves are incredible when they come out in the springtime. They'll be a dark purple color, and then they eventually turn to green. And then in the fall, actually, they'll also turn yellow. So you're getting color pretty much the whole year. And then you've got these fun little shapes that you'll see all kinds of birds settling on.
So the new is purple, burgundy kind of color, real dark, rich color. And then those turn green, or they fade a little bit?
They fade to green. So the new.
And then the fall color is gold. Yeah, that's good. And the flower is a bright, like this color pink. It's that. So it's very pretty. But if you want a flowing thing, like say in between boulders or up on a raised bed or something, you need something interesting. Or in that that corner by the front door that has dirt, you don't know what to do with it. This is not too big. It's pretty, it's interesting. And then you can do some underplantings with some perennials and flowers. That's how you kind of use those specimen trees. Your regular red buds, which is what this sort of is, just grows like this, like an umbrella, about 12 feet tall umbrella. You can walk underneath it. It's got the same leaf, but the form is more upright and kind of a mini shade tree kind of thing.
Yeah, so and this one's actually going to stay a little bit smaller than the vanilla twist. So this one's not going to.
That's what pruners are for.
Right, yeah. So if you've got a small space, it's a really good little tree to add some interest to your garden. And then I didn't haul this one up here because it's a little bit too big. I didn't want to bring the whole greenhouse down. But I also brought in some pink pom-pom red buds, and those are one of my favorites. It's an upright grower, so you can kind of see on here. I do have some handouts with all of the different offerings on it. If you want to take it. Oh, here you go, y'all.
So we probably have 10 different varieties of red buds. Red buds are a native that grows here. So they adapt really well to here. So we're trying to introduce more of those, and they stay smaller. So a lot of these smaller homes, humongous homes on very small lots can now plant. It's a tree that doesn't take over, get too big kind of stuff. So it doesn't take like a cottonwood. You don't need a 80-foot tree in a 10-foot backyard. It's just way too much. Red buds, perfect. They don't get disease. They bloom early. They get all the seasons covered. They're drought hardy. They can almost adapt on their own when they're fully rooted. They get everything you want. And I think they do take full sun. I've seen them right out there in commercial settings, surrounded by asphalt. They haven't been cared for in years growing. So.
Well, I always, verge on the side of caution, especially living up in Flagstaff, because it's such a hard.
Why would you live up there? It's too cold. Come down to God's country. You should live in Prescott. Okay, there we go. There we go.
Gardening, it's not good for the gardening hobby, but.
So, how long you been working for eVerde?
I've been with them for 3 years.
3 years? Gotcha.
Yep, over 3 years.
And you can see how long you'll work for them. 42, 35.
I'm quite excited to be in the wholesale side of things and be supplying to you. And you guys will be seeing a lot of our plants here. On top of trees, we also do shrubs and perennials and edibles, fruit.
You can't say that. Say vegetables, trees. Can't say edibles or.
Edible trees and shrubs. We do berries. We also are producing tropicals, so you might see some houseplants of ours in the houseplant section as well. So we're doing a lot of different.
And they got the shipping to be able to bring it into us. So give it up for Caitlin Thomas. Appreciate that. eVerde growers, thank you very much. I'll take your microphone.
It's so high tech. Wow.
So it's just a microphone. It's Bluetooth. Bluetooth, it sure is high tech. That's true. Thank you. Douglas, where are you? Oh, our flower man. The flower man. Flower man. Douglas has been with Armstrong Growers. I don't know how many farms you grow, 2 or 3 or 4.
4 farms in Southern California.
Gotcha. So he's growing our vegetables, herbs, perennials, some roses, kind of a mixture of stuff. But if it's colorful,
Yes.
probably from Douglas. And he's our eyes and ears at the farm. We make sure we get, during the pandemic, they were running out like crazy. We just go, Douglas, we don't care what it is. Just fill the truck up. Look, he would just grab it for us and ship it in. And he kept us stocked. So we never ran out. It changed a little bit, but Douglas he's our advocate at the farm. And then he takes us over, tours us around, lets us see what's going on. And we can put in requests. So he's contract growing several of our things for us. So I go, Douglas, I need 500 of this geranium, grow it for me. He goes, will do. So he just kind of, that's how it kind of works with these farms. It's kind of a hybrid way that we work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us about yourself, how long you've been in the industry, and why are you still here?
Why would I leave?
Yeah.
So I've been with Armstrong 16 years.
Awesome.
I was with Monrovia before that for 5. So been in the industry a little over 20 total. Before that, as a teenager, I was in the industry on the landscape side. So
I didn't know that.
I had a landscape when I was a kid, and then I went to school for horticulture, and then after that was Monrovia. So It's all I know, so that's why I would never leave.
What you'll find with this industry is there's no turnover. We tend to go in it and we retire in this. It's a funny thing. It's unusual. You don't see that in other industries, but this it's family, it's culture, it's dirt, it's organic. We just we might move around companies a little bit.
Right.
But basically, we stay in the industry because it's so exciting.
Yeah.
So fun.
It is. And Armstrong is I think one of the more fun because we do annuals and perennials, which are quick turning crops. So everything is changing, a lot of new varieties every year because we can create new ones a little faster than say trees and shrubs. So
What I also like about Armstrong is they have a retail division. This is an employee owned.
yes.
So it's an ESOP. So it's not a big corporation. But they own on the retail side, they own like 30 or 40 retail garden centers that are like ours. And then they have this entire growing division that supplies them and us. And so they know what retail customers want, whereas so many other folks, they're landscape. So they go B grade, C grade. I don't care. I just got to meet the bid and the quality. It's just not, the quality isn't there. They come through with quality first. Then we'll come back to, so it's the tier that the bar that you all set, it's way high.
Yeah,
Anyway.
I mean, yeah. So having a marketing team behind us on the retail side is perfect to be able to share with our outside customers.
You want to start with these, don't you?
So yeah, I mean, so it's been a long, hard winter here. So for pops of color, pansies and violas are our number one suggestion for right now. They're hardy little guys. They're gonna go into a little bit of our heat once we hit
That smells
late
so
spring.
good. That's amazing.
They have fragrance. Exactly. They come in, tons of colors. So whatever.
What's the difference between a pansy and a viola?
Mostly it's just the size of the flower. So your pansy is going to give you obviously a much larger flower. You should deadhead those to keep it blooming prolifically. Violas I love because you don't necessarily have to deadhead those. They bloom prolifically on their own. Obviously you can.
These reseed in my yard too. They'll
Yeah.
come back, kind of spread for you. So these are annuals. That is, they will
Yes.
bloom for a year and then they die. Mainly these do not like summer. So no matter how much water you put on them, once it gets to 90 degrees, they will vaporize before your eyes. They just don't like the heat. They like the cold.
Yeah.
The mistake they make is they'll come in May and, oh, I want some of those pansies. My neighbors, your gardens, they look so good. I want some of those. They come in and plant in May, and then June comes. June is 90 and there's a prevailing wind and it's dry, and they die like a month later. If you plant these in October, September, plant them in the fall, they'll actually bloom right through winter. They might get a little beat up from that snow that we had, what was that, a week ago? I swept the snow off. I'll just fertilize them. So they kind of laid over a little bit. They'll pop right back and start growing just like this again, just within days. So they like the cold. They like they need the frost. They don't like the heat. So now's the time. What else you want to go for?
Pinching off the flower that is spent. Yeah. Yeah. So these two guys
Pinching.
are perennials. So those it's a
This
good
is the
investment.
coolest thing. That's so
Yeah,
it's into those home
yeah.
instantly. So yeah.
So let's talk about it. It's a brand new dianthus. It's a constant cadence potpourri. It is the first one that I've ever seen that one single plant has 3 different color blooms on the
What? That's the coolest thing ever.
So
They're pink or red or white.
right.
Here they just said, oh, let's put a potpourri in there. It's really cool.
Yeah. So really good. Takes our cold temperatures here. Also takes heat. So this will
Evergreen.
an evergreen.
Yep.
So will bloom all through spring and summer into fall for us. And then at least you'll have foliage during the winter.
This is one I do find I benefit from deadheading or pinching the spent flower. You'll see there's buds underneath. As long as you pinch those off and you fertilize it, I would fertilize this twice a month with flower power. We have a water soluble food down there. Just twice a month, fertilize it with that, and then deadhead, and this will be in bloom through the entire season. It's just absolutely amazing. Butterflies love it. So, and anytime you hear the word pinks, carnations, or dianthus, they're all the same families. The flowers change a little bit, but they're all it's kind of like pansies and viola. It's the same plant. They're just cousins. They all have this blue foliage. They all have different colored flowers, but they take full sun. I mean, just bright, hot animals. My javelina, that's my nemesis in my gardens. Don't eat this. So I've had good luck with that. I don't know about this new color, but I would imagine it's going to be just like all the others. It'll be fine.
Because it's the same scent and everything.
Yeah.
This common name is columbine, botanical Aquilegia. Another really great perennial, as you can tell, it's just blooming prolifically.
Yeah.
Comes in a lot of different colors, also some bicolors, which means two different colors in the same flower. Another really good one, drought tolerant, loves the heat, but also can take some of the chilly weather that we're having now.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
another really great option if you're looking for some.
Yellow, I find the animals don't bother. They can eat some of the yellows and blues and the other colors, bicolors. Sometimes they'll nibble on them. They won't eat them right to the ground, but I think the flowers taste different or something on them. So just personal experience. My name's Ken. We're just friends, just gardeners talking over the back fence. Yellow is kind of bulletproof. Also, Arizona, our Arizona columbine is yellow. So this grows wild out in the forest, certain elevations. So I think the animals are programmed. When you see yellow, not good. But when you see blue, try it out. So I think that's kind of part of what goes on. So what else do you want to talk about?
The euphorbia. This is another great perennial.
Might as well combine it with snaps. They kind of go together.
Grows almost into a shrub. So this one is Ascot Rainbow. As you can, since we've had some cooler temperatures, you can see that it gives us a little bit of a pink, almost red color. It always is going to have red stems, but variegated foliage is super striking, great for borders or even really small hedges.
Well, like knee high, kind of base shaped like this.
And it will flower in the summer.
Yep. It's got the neatest flower. The flower is the same color as the foliage, really, but disc shaped. So you get these two different textures. It's very interesting. Then when it's done blooming, I'll just cut those off. But the reason I like this, so I've got a 2-story house. The side from the driveway, walking down to the back patio, that's where the guests kind of come and go. And we've got beautiful pots to say welcome and come on in. The barbecue's back here. But at night, it's dark because it's the side of the house. So I'll use this because it's so bright, going up the steps, kind of every other step, but it almost glows in the dark. And so it kind of helps folks see where the steps are. So there's a way to moonscape with that plant. Yeah. It did take it in the chin with this last snow, kind of like flopped over. Yeah. I kicked it off. I will see if it pops back up, but if not, I'll bring it back and fertilize it. It'll come back.
Yeah. Give it a little heat and it'll push.
Not
Snapdragons, another great annual, another one that comes in a lot of different colors, also bicolors. Loves the cool season right now. We'll go up here into the upper 80s.
Oh yeah, it'll bloom through May easily. Okay. So as this stalk kind of grows, but by summer it'll stop blooming. And so what I'll do is I'll trim off that flower stalk. I'll trim it back to this green part here, and then fertilize it, and then it will go right back into bloom fall into early winter. So it's got 2 very long bloom cycles, and this one thinks it's an annual. That is, it lasts a year, but it thinks it's a perennial. Because it reseeds, it comes back. You'll never have just one. You always get more. So it's like a true wildflower. Every yard should have at least one. And javelina, rabbits, deer, don't bother these, and they go into the full sun. It's full sun. I think we're almost out of time. So is there one other?
We'll just touch base on houseplants. It's a newer category for us at Armstrong, but Waters has a beautiful display of all different ones down in the greenhouse. So
take a look at the house plant. I love his because they're getting, pothos. I mean, come on, philodendrons. It's boring. I put my kids through college selling those plants. I want something new. So cut leaf,
Swiss cheese,
way different. A Chinese evergreen that's red, and that's so cool. You've never seen that before. It's only available at Waters Garden Center. truly is. So thank you, Douglas. Appreciate that. Give it up for Douglas Forrest with here. I'll take that. Yeah. Who is up next? Who's up after? Is that Aaron? Aaron, you're up. Trees of Corrales. Oh yeah, thank you very much. So yeah. So Trees of Corrales. Aaron Lamb. What am I? Put that on for you. So trees of Corrales I like because their farm is in Albuquerque, same altitude as us. So the negative is they grow a little bit later because they're a little bit cooler, but it's the same water, same sun, same, everything's the same. So it grows the same. And he grows some of these exotic kind of native-y, the more native-y stuff that grows here. So Aaron kind of puts us on to, he just diversifies us into this interesting Western native kind of plant mix. Aaron's growing all those interesting perennials. So he's been our rep for Trees of Corrales, TOC. How long? 3 or 4? You've been with them for 3 years or something like that, but we've been buying from them for decades. Let me just take a quick moment before you go into it. I've got 2 handouts for you. One is the deer and rabbit resistive plants. I got a list of them. It's not all of them, but it'll at least get you in the right direction. That seemed to be a theme coming up right now. I think the gardens are being eaten. There's a pressure because they're hungry. They've been hibernating and now they're out. They want to forage. Rabbits, deer, all that kind of stuff. So that list I'll give to you. And then also butterflies and hummingbirds. I mean, who loves butterflies and hummingbirds? They're great. I got a whole list of just plants that attract more butterflies and hummingbirds. I'll send those both to you by email. There'll be a link. You can open those up with any tablet or phone or whatever, desktop. Go ahead and take the pen in. So I've got that. And I wonder if I have another pen. Let's see. Thanks for taking just a moment. Sorry about that. But now, if you're on our garden list, you're part of the garden club. This is not going to all 10,000 of you. I mean, this is only for you all. Just the class members get those 2 things. So I'll send that to you probably realistically on Monday. So I'll probably send it out to you. Anyway, put your name down if you want that. If you don't put it down. Really easy. Aaron, tell us about you. How'd you get in the industry? Had dinner with you last night. It was super interesting, your background. I think we should share some of that because it's interesting where people came from.
So I work for Trees of Corrales, or TOC Wholesale Nursery, and we're a nursery just north of Albuquerque, New Mexico in Corrales, which is right along the river. And we have a farm there. It started being a B&B tree farm back in the early 70s and has progressed to do everything from the big trees all the way down to little court flat perennials, and have flowering perennials and shrubs and grasses and a lot of native selections. A lot of, working with the plant selects that David talked about earlier for the Intermountain region and having appropriate plant material for this greater region. Albuquerque is awesome because it's has a lot of different microhabitats, which also here in Prescott, you guys have a lot of different microhabitats. Some people may live a little higher elevation. Some people may be more in a heat sink in town. You have walls to play off of. You have south side of your house where you just get a lot of heat, where you can really maybe even start playing with zone 8 plants versus your standard 7 and lower zones that you would have in this area. But then you also have, these cooler sides of the house. You have snow that falls. So there's just a huge diversity that you have available, and it's fun. It's a lot of fun. If you're into gardening and you like plants, it's absolutely great.
What you talking about?
So I have a maple over here I want to talk about.
Yeah,
And
pull it
everybody
up,
loves
man.
maples.
Yeah.
I want to say real quick, a lot of these other ornamental trees are awesome for really small spaces. You can fit them in and put them and get that character that you want.
Bring it to you.
Sometimes people don't have room for bigger trees like shade trees. And if you do, maybe you just have room for one. This is, and everybody loves maples. Everybody loves the fall color. People that came from other parts of the country, the maple is so nostalgic. This is a sensation maple. Its leaf is a little bit different than your classic maple leaf. One of the common names of just the true species of this is a variety that they selected. It's a male selection. It's a really, really nice, fine structural specimen that was selected. And like some people have talked about before, that's the whole thing for the nursery industry, is finding these individual plants that really fit well in your space and in your yard. With that said, this tree gets to be about 25, 30 feet tall and about as wide, and it's a great shade tree. So if you don't have a big space and you want something that'll fit in your yard, but still provide a lot of shade, this is a really, really good choice. Could go pretty much anywhere in the landscape, can handle all different soil conditions. So you could put this on a cooler side of your house. Zone 2, it's super, super cold tolerant. You would see this, and you do see this up in Flagstaff in either colder zones, but does great here. and it is, you know, a native tree. So
It's a native tree,
It does excellent. Really, really good choice. Something kind of talking about with character. This has at a younger stage has the nice red bark to it, even though it loses its foliage. So you get that great fall color, but then you still have a lot of character and interest and structural aspect throughout the winter. The younger foliage on, or sorry, the younger twigs on here just give that really nice look in the wintertime that just adds a different dimension in color and winter interest, which is
If
awesome.
people were to plant this and get it rooted, so in Albuquerque, could they let it go by themselves? Could it go totally native at that point, or would they need to supplement water every couple of weeks? So,
You'd want to supplement.
okay,
some
that's what we tell folks. It's just
Yeah,
seeing if you'd
yeah,
seen it
ideally,
go by itself.
I'd put this on a drip. You know, Albuquerque's interesting because you get down in the valley and you get near the river and, you know, 8 feet down, you're going to hit water. So they're fine in that situation. But if you're someplace else, you have a little bit, you know, better drained soil, it's not going to hurt to give this a little more water. They do grow fast too, which is nice. And so, you know, give it that extra love to get it well established, and you're going to have a nicer specimen sooner.
Sensation maples, what I love, they are native. They're a shade tree, whereas a redbud's not a shade tree. It's not that big. You couldn't shade a patio with it. Maybe a lawn chair, but not a patio. This is big enough to actually put on that west side patio to get up there and actually shade to make that environment more pleasant. But it's not so ginormous like a willow or cottonwood or sycamores, which are just 80 feet tall. They're too big for most yards. This one fits any yard. So it's just, and it's tough. And the fall color, like this orangey red, it's magnificent. It's beautiful fall color. I'd say it's famous for its fall color. So anyway, Sensation maple.
So I'll say real quick. So I didn't say anything. So my background's in herpetology. I did a lot of work out in the field and worked with native plants, got into the nursery industry, and then it kind of just all came together.
You still going over here? I thought it was, what are you looking at?
Right.
Your maple's over. You got to move on.
Okay, so I'll just say this. So being in my position now, one of the most enjoyable things, I get to come to all these great places and see all these wonderful plants. And so Ken was saying earlier about, you know, when you see something, you may want to grab it. And again, not trying to push anything, but the one thing that I've learned going to all these garden centers everywhere and looking across and just knowing what the plants are and, oh, that's cool, I haven't seen that before. Like, you may not see that crop again for another year or a couple of years. So if you do see something that you really like, I don't think that you're, you know, I don't know if I should get that now. You may not see that exact structure of that same individual plant again. So it is amazing.
So
it takes a long time to grow these
Tell
plants.
us, are we past the pandemic like frenzy? Have you got more plants coming online so we don't have to be, you know, grab them all? Do you think that wave, there were a couple of years there, we were like desperate to grab any plant we could find.
I think it depends on the varieties.
Oh, you do.
But you get into these really cool cultivars and these more unique
Okay, yeah.
plants that you're not seeing. It takes years and years and years to produce this plant that's right here in front of you. So it's amazing. But yeah, you have thousands of something and you divvy that out to your region, and all of a sudden only 10 go into every garden center that's out there. So
The benefit of having Denver come online so strong in the last 10 years. So Denver is a behemoth, that Front Range area. There's a lot of bodies there. And so growers like Aaron are developing plants for the Mountain West. Whereas before we'd have to go to lower elevations and find those plants and figure out how to adapt them. Now we actually have growers growing for us at this higher elevation, it's a totally different plant palette, and they're hardier. So when you find that our plants live, it's because Aaron makes sure our plants live. So I appreciate that. You give it up for Aaron Lamb, Trees of Oralis. Who is up next? Where am I at? Yeah, thank you. Who's up after Aaron? Is that who? Yeah, Bailey's. Get up here. Come on, Scott. Now, Scott, I tried to spell your name. I tried to say your name out loud. You can put this on and just Scott with Bailey's Nursery, which is kind of a competitor to Monrovia's.
Oh, we're friends.
We're friends. Okay, whatever.
No,
I buy from both farms. But they have some really neat, newer first editions is what you call them, but new introductions. But just say your last name.
My last name is Schwartzendruber.
I love it.
Yeah.
Schwartzendruber.
So there's the letters in there.
Dang it. I just know it's like 12 letters. 14.
Yep. There's a whole bunch. Yeah, so I work for Bailey Nurseries and I just started in November, so I'm brand new. I worked for the past 23 years at a retail garden center doing it's very similar to Waters Garden Center over here, very kind of high quality. We only bought from the best vendors out there in the business. And that's where I got to know Bailey's. I bought from for the past 23 years. And there I did bare root and containers and a lot of different things. Waters primarily just buys containers from us, but they, we're very proud to be in a garden center such as this, and y'all are very lucky to have such a great place. So this is a
So what
wonderful
prompted
spot.
you to jump ship from retail, which is awesome,
Yeah.
to grower side, which is awesome?
There's a lot of reasons. I had been there for 23 years. It's an amazing business. All my best friends still work there. But it was a good time for a change, and working for a company like Bailey is an opportunity that doesn't really come around very often. And my territory is Wyoming, Colorado, New Mexico, and Arizona. And I am a big mountain biker, fly fisherman, and it opens up this amazing opportunity to get out there and not only see all these new customers, but do some fun exploring as well. So, and my kids are getting older, and it kind of fit well with the family situation. So it was a very hard move to make because I love the place I was at, because retail garden centers are wonderful to work at. But I think I found a really great company to work for. They're still family owned. They really produce top quality plants for the whole entire country and even internationally. I'm just very proud to work for them. So
How many farms do they have? They got Minnesota, they got Illinois, Oregon. How many acres are they doing?
Well, they have many thousands of acres, and in each state they have multiple farms. So like in Oregon, they have a container farm and then a bare root farm. And in Minnesota, they have the same. They have container farms, tree farms, bare root farms. They have a ginormous greenhouse growing area out in Minnesota. They have, just in Oregon, they have about 7 acres of cold storage just for bare root. So it is a very large nursery, and they supply not only a lot of the independent growers around here, but then a lot of the people that supply the growers.
Just while we're on camera, so you can tell your boss.
Yeah.
I really want some more lilacs and some of that spring blooming stuff from Minnesota.
Yeah.
Ship it down to me. So when they're done blooming here, I got another set of bloomers coming down. So I can just work the country. I want that. I want it.
Yeah, we got
I've been trying for years.
That's right. It would be really nice to get Minnesota stuff out of here. So, but
so talk about a plant. So we can kind of, what you got?
We got
what you bring
a
up
couple
here?
different things in here. I'll grab these first.
Okay. Bailey's is, it's family owned. So you can go to dinner. I mean, we go to dinner we're all friends. And so I know basically one of the philosophies we have, if we can't go to dinner with the owner, we're probably not interested. So we're supporting small business, family owned business. ESOPs work, that's employee owned. So we've purposely go make relationships with that. And so we've had friendships with Bailey's for many decades. And they grow great plants. Although you brought this twig up here, I
know.
Crap, they're not going to leaf out for another month.
No, I talked to Amy, and she wanted one of the employees here, and she wanted me to spotlight these because they're such great plants.
They are.
They are very slow to wake up, though.
Yeah.
So these are crepe myrtles, and these are out of the first edition programs, which is Bailey's kind of breeding plant introduction program. These 2 crepe myrtles, there are pictures on the tags, but they're kind of hard to see. But this particular one's called Lunar Magic. The Magic series of crepe myrtles were bred primarily for disease resistance and abundant blooms. So they have some real showy attributes to them and very low incidence of disease, which can be a problem with some of the crepes out there. The Lunar Magic, this one is a big kind of base shape, and then it has dark purple leaves and bright white blossoms on top of it. So it is very striking. Just a beautiful plant, and you will have to wait. And then it did said you can shear these back and get a rebloom later in the season as well. This one over here is Red Magic. It's also in that Magic series. This has big, poofy red flowers, and it actually has very nice fall color as well. So this is a great group of plants for some summer color, a little bit of fall color in the Red Magic, nice purple foliage. Do great in full sun around here. So good plants to have, and very showy color. So that's a couple
Crepe
of
myrtles
plants.
love the sun, love the wind. I mean, bright, just blistering hot sun. They'll take that. And so they are a little late to wake up. So that won't start leafing until May. So people start calling us like end of April going, hey, I think it died. I think it died. I think it died. I said, no, it doesn't like spring. It wants it to be hot. When it's 90 degrees, he's finally go, oh, finally, I'm finally comfortable. They like to put a Speedo on, lay out there in the rock, just take up the sun. That's a crepe myrtle. And they have these ruffled whites, bright, intense fluorescent colors. No shrub has that bright fluorescent color. Maybe rhododendrons have come close to that color. But anyway, crepes do well here. Okay. What's that? You know, I don't know that crepes smell.
I don't think they really do.
You know, you can visualize them from a distance and smell it, but otherwise, no, there's no real fragrance to it. No,
But,
it's pretty.
The next plant, this is a
This is a good one.
fragrant. So this is a gardenia. And I don't know if you all have tried gardenias in the landscape out here, but Bailey, through their breeding program, has a couple of gardenias that are hardy consistently to zone 7. So they will overwinter for you here, and they'll provide a great season of color, extraordinarily fragrant blossoms. That one right there is Sweet Star, which this one has single blossoms, very nice fruit set on it as well. Nice compact plant. There's another one out in the nursery called Sweet Tea, which is a big double blossom, like popcorn size, big white blossoms, and a great fragrance on those. So this is another plant kind of success out of the breeding program to find these cold hardy gardenias that'll work in places like this.
Gardenia rarely, this is a large family of plants. Very few grow at this elevation. They like it more tropical, more Southern California, that area. That's where they do well. But Bailey's, what we love about this first, when you see this purple pot first edition, they're creating things that will actually take colder climates. So now we can have a gardenia up here and it works well. And I've grown this one in my yard for several years. I grow it in a container and I put this out where we actually sit. We're by the barbecue, by the back, by that outdoor sofa. It's where we're actually entertaining. I want this to be in bloom where it just fills up that patio, the deck, the covered area with that fragrance. Gardenia is very sweet. I think sweeter than lilacs as far as that fragrance go. Flower is consistent and almost nonstop. It blooms a long time with flowers. Mine are in pots and they look just like this. They were out there in the cold, covered, and now it's budding up. You're seeing the flower buds right here. Mine are budding up just like this in my backyard. I've got one in the front yard. Let's get some sun in the late day. In the backyard, it gets zero sun ever, and they thrive. I would say gardenia, probably not ideal in the mid-June, middle of the day, 10 to 2. Sun is not going to like that. Morning would be good, afternoon would be good, but that all day, blistering hot, we probably have some better choices than this. But on a patio, covered patio in a container, this is a great plant. It's evergreen. Look at that. It's beautiful.
Very nice.
I love it.
Yep.
One more plant and then you're out.
One more. I think I'm going to grab a rose. So this is another program, this Easy Elegance roses, and these are own root shrub roses that have very little disease, insect issues. This particular one that I brought up here is one called Sweet Fragrance, which has a high petal count and holds its blossoms up very similar to like a hybrid tea rose. And the fragrance on this one is outstanding. So you're not sacrificing flower quality, fragrance for the hardiness of this particular plant. The care is very low. It doesn't need particular cane pruning like the hybrid teas do. I don't know about everybody down here, but in Fort Collins to grow hybrid teas, we have to mound them in the wintertime. We have to do a lot of protection for these. And the shrub roses, you don't have to do that. They also are not as in need of deadheading to be in repeat bloom. They have a great succession of blooms throughout the season. So there's a lot in this series, Easy Elegance, out there in the nursery. They brought in quite a few. There's some beautiful roses. There's a cashmere, which is a dark red. This one I brought up over here, that is cashmere over there. But it's a great group of roses, very low insect disease, very easy care. Pretty much once season, just prune them back in the wintertime when they're dormant to kind of tighten them up a little bit. And they just kind of roll all year with blooms and color. So it's a great group of roses to get into.
I grew mine in a pot. Been in there for 3 or 4 years. It's beautiful. Non-stop color, repeat blooming. And what I like about this first edition, the Easy Elegance edition, it's on its own rootstock. Whereas if we get a real cold and these hybrid teas, the fancy grafted ones your grandparents grew, and we've got those too.
Yeah.
But if it gets really cold, it can kill off that rose. You could lose the actual name fragrant cloud, Mr. Lincoln, you can lose it. Shrub roses, you never lose them because they're on their own roots. If they get killed back to the root, a dump truck runs over it, the roots come right back with the same rose. It just comes right back. It's beautiful. And then the best thing is they don't get mildew. They don't get aphids. They don't get thrips. They're just easier care.
They're
You
much
don't have to
easier.
count back 3 nodes, count it to 45 to get it to rebloom. It does it by itself. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's really
Yeah,
good.
no,
You
they're-
just got to shape it and haircut it every once in a while.
Yeah.
So
Sweet fragrance will get about 3 to 4 feet where I'm from. Down here, I don't know if it would get any different.
yeah, hip
Yeah,
hire,
I'm kind of a
so,
big
yeah.
rose nerd. At the nursery I used to work at, we would trial all the different roses. And Easy Elegance was not the only group of roses we trialed, all sorts of different ones. And the roses out of this series were just outstanding performers. So it is a very, very good, consistent series of roses.
So Amy and I will fly up, and Mackenzie will fly up to Oregon to the farm. This is a big farm, hundreds and hundreds of acres. And they have hundreds, thousands of these roses, and the hills are covered with the roses. It's spectacular. And we go, oh, we like that color,
Yeah.
that color. Oh, that smells good. And we that's kind of how we buy them. So you go, we'll take 20 of those, 30 of those, 50 of those. And so, but it's a great series.
Yeah, it is.
Scott, say your last name again.
Swartz and Druber.
Schwarzendruber. I'm going to get that right. All I know is note to self.
Right. Thank you, Ken.
I'll take that. Note to self, Scott likes to mountain bike. He likes to outdoorsman. That's awesome. So I'll take him to my favorite mountain bike place. So Scott, I took my team up, our POS systems up in British Columbia. They're the engineers that created our software system. I take them up for users meetings. Have you ever mountain biked Victoria and the British Columbia? Oh, you got to do it. So they went to class and I went mountain biking all day. It was awesome. Chris Shipley, where are you at? Savano's nursery. Awesome. Come on up, Chris. So Chris, yeah, come on up. Just put that kind of anywhere where you kind of,
Oh, look at these are new.
they're new, they're better, I don't know, technology. So put it on the zipper right there. Kind of will pick the voice a little bit better, just anywhere. Yeah. So Chris Shipley, good friend. We like hanging out together. He has a family garden center down in Tucson and a very large growing range in Tucson as well. So he's getting us our deserty, like the Joshua trees, these great big Joshua trees that are out here. That's him. So desert willows, that's him. All these chase trees, that's him. Yuccas, that's him. That's you brought us some euphorbias, just kind of
Orbeez, yeah.
all these really hardy, high desert plants that are zone 7. He grows those for us because no one else does that in the country. You got to be an Arizonan, be
Yeah.
crazy enough to grow those. So Chris is and he's developing new plants
Lots
all
of
the time.
breeding,
You're
Lots of
creating.
breeding, yeah. We have
Yeah.
about 30 patents.
So how do you get a patent on a plant? Explain that to the crowd because that's an unusual thing.
Sure.
How many patents do you own? And
We have around in the 20s,
Okay.
25. We have probably another 15 patents to go.
Okay.
I'm 50, so I don't know, 10, 15 more
Well,
years
you
of
got
patents.
brothers.
Yes, my little brother, who's our grower, our operations manager, loves breeding new plants. And I never thought that we would get to that level of introducing new plants that go all over the Southwest or even into Canada.
You're going
Uh,
national now.
yeah.
You've got plants being sold nationally.
Plants that'll go nationwide.
We're a company out of Tucson.
Yeah, and we don't go ship nationwide, but the process is, there's 2 ways, but the best way is to take a plant that's popular but maybe you could envision it better, right? It's doing a job, but maybe it's big and it's evergreen and tough and low water. But what about if you imagined it half its height? And you're like, wouldn't that be cool? Because now we could use it instead of a blocking plant or people have to prune it all the time, causing you to get your clippers out 4 times a year to prune it. Imagine if it only just stayed 4 feet or 3 feet. Wonder if that's possible. And then if you dream it and you go for it,
And give it to Nick. He'll actually make
and
that.
you can, if you wait long enough and figure it out, and work at it, you can do it. So that's the process. Is a lot of crossing.
Now, are you doing that by seed, by cuttings,
Seed.
by
You
say
grow a crop
seed?
out,
So-
and then you grow another crop out of something you want to put into the parent plant, and you cross-pollinate.
Cross-pollinate. Got it.
And then get the seed off of that, then grow that out. So it takes years. We're 8 years into breeding leucophyllums or the Texas Rangers, the
Yeah.
Texas sage. But this plant here was an oak tree that we found in central Texas, and which is in more of an acidic or alkaline soil there, sorry, where it comes across the plains, it's a acid soil. This is more of an arid selection of live oak. And we grew the seed out, and one of the 10,000 grew in a ball. And that's an unusual shape for an oak, but that's a desirable shape for homeowners because it makes an automatic ball. And tag here, I don't know if you can see that.
No one can see that.
But it's
Just describe it. They don't want to see your behind.
It's a lollipop.
We want to see your behind. No, none of us do.
Lollipop on a stick. It's called the Joan Linetti Live Oak. And I have tens and tens of thousands being sold in Texas, or growing in Texas, I should say. And we sell it here all over Arizona. But it's now you can have live oak, evergreen oak, that's good for the deserts, that creates a lollipop effect without having to constantly prune it. There's no guessing that's going to weep or go this way or that way. It just makes a lollipop.
I love it. It's
And-
one of the most exciting plants. You
Yeah.
have a lot of exciting
So
plants.
that one-
I love that new yucca you got coming out. And it's just, but that's on the top of my list this year.
That's done by cuttings. And so we literally cut the new growth of the tree and root it. And that's the secret sauce. That's the $1 million question, is how do you do that to an oak? And my brother cracked the code about 4 years ago. We have 90% success on rooting out oaks, which is
From
very
cuttings.
unusual. Yes.
And the reason you'd want to do that just for them.
So we get the same tree every time. I want that lollipop on a stick. If I grow it from seed, it could be skinny, it could be weeping, it could be anything. I want the round ball on the stick. So my brother figured out how to get the round ball on the stick.
So if you take a cutting of that exact plant, if you find the perfect plant, start taking cuttings and root that, it replicates that exact plant over and over and over. It's exact.
And that's the Joan
Exact
Linetti oak.
Yeah, I love it. What else you got, Chris?
So we have a desert willow.
This is so exciting. So we have great native willows grow wild here.
Yes.
This one grows better.
So if you went into
Put
your,
it up here on the
yeah,
so the camera can see the twigs.
yeah. Yeah.
In a summer, it'll be exciting.
If you went into the side of the road where the water goes and rummaged around in the bushes, you'd probably see a desert willow growing. So
Oh,
it
yeah.
likes a little bit of extra water when it's not on irrigation. And you would see this seedy, sort of messy tree that's wild and bushy. And it would have whitish pink flowers, but it would be covered in seeds.
Yeah.
That's mostly what you'd see right now. And you're like, that's ugly. So my brother envisioned, well, why not make this drought tolerant, cold tolerant, smaller tree available that's native to right here in Prescott or nearby? Why not make that a pretty tree for everyone to use? And because native trees are responsible or more responsible for attracting pollinators, hummingbirds, bees, butterflies.
Oh, yeah.
And we need smaller trees because we have smaller yards now. Just that's the way life's going. And so he envisioned, instead of a yellowy, narrow leaf with seeds, he wanted a fat leaf, green, with a dark burgundy flower that had nice symmetry in its shape. He's like, I'm going to do that. I was like, you go do that. That's going to be a winner. And so the best cultivar out there was one called Bubba. I go, but we have a beautiful, Bubba has the fat leaves and the sturdiness of trunk and nature and good in all soil conditions. And that's what you want. And I said, but we need symmetry and a better flower, and we need no seeds. So we put another cultivar called Sweet Katie, which is his wife. And I tell him, I don't know about the name on that. I don't know if she's that sweet, but she's nice. She's a nurse and she's pretty.
Does your wife have one named after her? Sweet
No,
Doll, or
no. So we put the two together, and out came Sweet Bubba, hopped out of the oven. And Sweet Bubba is virtually seedless, very symmetrical, seedless, big fat green leaf, and is a less than a 20 by 20 tree. So it's an 18 by 18 tight, beautiful tree that will attract hummingbirds and all the pollinators.
And it's a repeat bloomer, right?
It's
So because
basically
the seed isn't there.
Yes, it's a
It keeps
repeat
going.
bloomer, constant bloomer. And I would dare to say it's best in show now. It's,
I would agree.
yeah, I mean, tell me what's better. I
Yeah.
haven't seen it yet.
No, I haven't either.
So,
He's got several series of
Yeah.
desert willows.
we do.
So many, we used to sell for years the old fashioned, our native, our. Oh,
There's
yeah.
one called Bubba Jones. And it looks just like this, except it has pink flowers. Like, why do you want pink flowers when you have burgundy flowers? I asked my brother. And I asked my customers, because they kept ordering Bubba Jones and Sweet Bubba. I'm like, why would you do that when you got the burgundy one? And they're like, well, Chris, sometimes the Sweet Bubba's not blooming, but Bubba Jones never stops. Like, oh. And Bubba Jones does have some seeds, but it does have the big green leaf. And it's a little more vigorous. It's a little more open. It's roundish. It's like a roly, it's roundish shape. And it's always flowering.
Are these mainly single trunked, multi-trunked?
We make them multi. You can do whatever you like with them, I suppose, but
Big
it's
vase shape,
natural
like a
form
case
is-
tree,
is
be similar.
multi-trunk.
Yeah.
And so Bubba Jones came from Warren Jones, which is a selection. And we put Warren Jones into Bubba, and out came Bubba Jones. Right out of the oven. 350, 40 minutes, Bubba Jones. So we have Sweet Bubba, we have Bubba Jones, we grow Bubba, we have the Bubba series, which are the three best desert willows, period, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree.
And that's that. So
Thank you.
that's this one.
18, high teens, kind of 15 to 20 in that range. Full sun. Again, it's a native, so animals don't eat that. So it's pretty bulletproof. Full sun, and just curse it. It'll still grow and bloom. Oh, that's amazing.
So this is Little Giant. And I don't name these plants. Yeah, I could.
Nick
name
is doing
these.
this, isn't he?
I name a lot of them.
Yeah.
Little Giant, you're like, well, what's a Little Giant? So there's a plant called Giant Yucca, Hesperella vinifera, which is probably sold in the little slightly warmer parts of here, or maybe right here.
Yep.
Actually, it does. But it's an accent plant. And accent plants are meant to draw your attention to an area, or maybe accent a wall, or they're kind of like the soldiers that stand guard and protect the rest of the plants. But the giant yucca, his problem is 6 years later, it's like it ate too much. It's huge. It grew 8 feet and it's strong and robust, but it's too strong for the other plants. And the blooms, so the plant's 8 feet, but the blooms are another 8 feet. So it's like 16 feet in the air. It's like a bit much. So we're like, what about if we brought the size down to a 4x4 with 8-foot blooms? And we're going to change the bloom from white to pink. And we're going to make it bloom for 6 months of the year instead of 6 weeks. Can we do that? He's like, let's do it. So we set the oven for 350 and we stuck red yucca in the oven and we pushed them together with the giant yucca and out came Little Giant. And now we have a 4x4 cold tolerant accent plant that will guard your little perennials and ground covers, stand watch, and Little Giant is now available at Waters Garden Center. And now it's appropriate in size.
Yeah.
And that's Little Giant.
This is a perfect place for those backyards with that 5 foot, like block wall fence.
Yes.
Looks like you're in the,
Yeah.
I don't know, Eastern Bloc of Europe or something, like you're in a prison. Put some of these in front to soften that up.
Yes.
Takes
Chain
the
link
heat,
fence,
radiant
block
heat that will
wall.
come off of that and just live for
It'll
years and
flower in the
years.
summer.
Yeah. Amazing little plant. Amazing big
Hummingbirds love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's exciting.
we have
I'm gonna plant one of those in my backyard this year. I just had an
Yes,
agave bloom last year. Put that flower on. When agave gets done blooming, it dies. So now I have a hole. That's what I'm putting in.
So the last plant, I believe, for today is stoplights. And it's a red yucca, but it's dwarf. And it's got a fire engine red bloom. It's called stoplights. This was a lot of years, a number of years. It takes a long time to create these plants. They're not, it's not 40 minutes in the oven.
I'm gonna give you
It's,
that.
it's 2 years in a
Take one
tissue
and
culture
pass it that way
lab.
If you would.
Oh, yeah.
Take
It's-
these,
it's-
take one
It's a
and
number of
pass
years.
it back that way. We're gonna talk about that in a second. Smile, Chris, smile. Dance, Chris, dance.
Lone Star. All right. So stoplights, I don't know, we found this plant, we bred this plant, we bred it probably about 6 years ago. And it's taken that long to get it into a lab. It's the only way to multiply, you can't do cuttings on this one, is to put it in a tissue culture lab, which is a fancy place for like an incubator for plants. In a clean room, they're all wearing suits and booties and hair nets and tweezers are coming out. That's what these two plants.
I'm visualizing you in a hairnet.
No,
right
not
now.
me, no. It's not a good
Yeah.
look. But that's where we send them. The agaves and the succulents all go to tissue culture labs. And so maybe not next year, but the year after, we're gonna have a yellow one. And
This dwarfed?
yeah,
Oh, that'd be
yeah, it's
good.
in tissue. I get my new the little liners arrive in end of May. I get
Awesome.
5,000 to test out in May and then 15,000 more in July.
Awesome.
So we're constantly breeding new plants for you to have. I have many more selections over the next 5 years coming, and I really appreciate being able to show them off to you. It's really
I
wonderful.
do have one request.
Mhm.
If I could have a yucca with a purple flower,
Okay.
that would be awesome. Because that's not made. And then if I could have it glow in the dark.
Oh,
That would be really
awesome.
cool.
It would.
That would be really
This
cool.
bake oven's gonna be popular. My 100-watt light bulb is gonna.
What I love about Sabano's nursery is Dad, what's your dad?
82.
82.
Yeah,
Still, he and I are close friends. He still works in the nursery.
yeah.
Chris and his brother is still there. His wife works in the business. The whole family works in the business. The pressure with the family business, where all those families work in the business, is you have to be really good business people to feed that many families. They are really good business people, really good plant folks,
Thank you.
and just a good friend. So give it up for Chris Shipley with
Thank
Sabano's
you.
Nursery out of Tucson. Yeah. So let me have that microphone, and then I'll let you.
These are great.
And then I'll take just a moment. I'll let you go. I'll take just a moment and give you a couple of things here. Was that okay? That's a different format and unusual, but you get to see a little bit of what we see from behind. We just want to draw the curtain back so you can just see what's really going on. It's way more complicated than you think to grow these different plants. And it takes many more years, decades to introduce these plants. And we tend to be one of the first ones. So everyone has a red tip photinia, most boring plant ever, huge evergreen, but we have the one that is fuller, thicker, and has brighter red because we've got that new genetics, new favored piece. And so it's a better plant. It's still under patent. So he gets, every time I sell one of those plants, he gets a quarter or a nickel or however much he gets. Hey, Chris, how much do you make for each plant that you patent? I want to know that. So do you make a nickel, a quarter, a dollar? 50 cents and $2. Wow. And you sell thousands and thousands. Oh, I have more respect for you every time I talk to you. Wow. Couple things you should be putting on your garden list right now. You should be writing this out. People keep asking me, when should I turn the irrigation system on? How much should I water? The grounds they're not dry yet. They're still very moist. Don't feel a rush to turn your irrigation on. Generally, sometimes in April, we'll turn it on. Well, whenever it seems to dry out, we'll kind of turn that irrigation system on. Then you're going to water trees and shrubs, all of this stuff, about once a week. Brand new plants, if you just put this brand new red bud out in, or brand new, whatever it is, you might water those twice a week. As soon as we dry out in April, it's going to be dry and a prevailing southwest wind and about 10% humidity, and you will feel it. You'll feel your skin dry out. So will your plants. So you kind of want to watch that. Don't go out and turn it on now. It's still too early. But when it does, we won't see rain again until like the monsoons. So once we go dry, eventually it's going to be dry. We won't see rain for 2-3 months. And then starting July, it'll start to be that afternoon rain again. So just, passed my business card out to you, not so you'd have my card, so you can tape it inside your irrigation box with my face away from you. And it's got the actual water guide, because that's the number one question we get. I answer that question 10 times a day. So I just go, here's a card. Just here's a card. Here's a card. You just watch your card. You can tape it inside your irrigation, your garden journal. But really, what I'm really after, I like my logo in every irrigation box in the Yavapai County, if I could. If you could help me out, that would be great. But it's there to help you. You've got a few weeks before you have to turn that on. So also fertilize. You need to fertilize in March. It's important, especially when we've had this much moisture. The food you gave last fall or the nutrients that were in the ground, those have all been flushed out. If you don't replenish that food, those plants will come out nice and green. They'll bloom really well. They'll set fruit really nicely, and then they'll just turn yellow and start to fade. You want to put that food on there so it can take it in as it grows. It can take the food in. So I brought, this is #1 seller, all-purpose plant food. It's one we make here. It's organic. It's not going to hurt your dogs, your pets. It works for 3 months. So it's a slow release organic food. Just spread this over the rock, spread it over around the gardens, and as it'll slowly go through the rock and the fabric and break down over a 3-month period. So do that now. One little thing I shared yesterday's class. So for me and my roses, I am putting rose food with systemic. So this says rose food, and you'll see with systemic there. So it's a formula that helps things that bloom get big flowers, big fragrant rose flowers. The systemic keeps the bugs out. So the plant will actually absorb the bug control through the structure. It'll taint the flower. And so the reason I do that in my gardens, because I'm a rosarian, those first buds are forever eaten by aphids and thrip. So it'll form a flower, and before the flower opens, it looks like someone took a Bic lighter and burned the tips. That's always thrip. There's a bug inside the bud that's eating the flower from the inside out. Systemics actually taint that flower so they don't get in there. If you really want flowers, that first wave, you really need to do that. So it's not organic. This is completely chemical. I cringe just putting it on my flower, but if you really want flowers that are bug-free, this is what I do only for my roses. Everything else gets the all-purpose. That, and lastly, I'll leave you with, it's important, or you are going to hate gardening this year. So the weeds are going to be awe-inspiring. They are going to be a lot. They're going to be big. They're going to be thick. They're going to take over you park the car too long. They're going to grow inside. It's going to be bad. Weeds are going to be bad. So you really want to put weed and grass stopper down. Again, when you're spreading all this, put it in my hand spreader, and I just spread it around the roses, I spread it around the trees, over the rock lawn, and it will keep the seed from germinating. It'll really reduce the work of weeding by at least 90% or more. So I do this twice a year. I do it now, and I do it right before the monsoons hit in July. That's when the tumbleweeds and the goat head, the one that kind of your dogs walk over and they start limping. That's a summer annual weed. It only comes back by seed. This keeps that from happening. And we sell this one, Weed and Grass Stopper. It's got the broadest weed mix. There's a lot of different weed preventers. This is the one you want to use because it controls more of the types of weeds that we have up here. So that's the reason we chose this one. But just kind of to my friends, just some things you can do right now, like this weekend, that'll really make your life easier or more fragrant or better, brighter, or later in the spring. So if you've already got weeds, you have to hoe them or break them or spray them or something. It'll affect little tiny weeds just coming up or the seed, but it's not going to affect an actual dandelion that's already up growing. Not going to affect that. It's just, so you take that one out or kill it, and then it'll keep any other ones from coming up. So I know we can go on and on with questions, but we're an hour and a half in. I tell you what, I know those seats are getting hard. You were very patient. I appreciate that. I try to go an hour and 15 or so. Feel the pressure, I'm over. I'll let you clap, and then I'll let you go, and I'll hang out up here as long as you want. Look at the plants. Our growers will be around. Chat with them offline. If something struck your fancy, they'll just be around all day. You know, she was supposed to come up. I'm worried